Fly chick coming through. Nice to meet you. Glad you came too. Like your style when you know you got moves. You spit game and you know you spit.
Hey everybody, before we started the show today, we wanted to let you know that this episode is a two-parter. The next episode will be coming out tomorrow, which will be on Wednesday, if you guys are listening to this on a Tuesday. We're so excited to talk all things F1 and Australian Grand Prix with you. So if you're listening to this episode, you are listening to part 1, and part 2 will be out the following day. Thanks, and enjoy this episode. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Fastlane Collective podcast. I'm here today with Yasmin. Woo! Yasmin, I've been so excited to record today because what in the holy name of the F1 gods was that race on Sunday?
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. Tell me about it. Like we were going to record on Sunday, but like we just couldn't get a time together. But that is how much we've been wanting to like, right, the race is over. Like we need to talk about this right now.
I know, and because it was in Australia and I'm East Coast time over here, it feels weird because technically in my mind I watched the race on Saturday night. So it feels like it's been a long gap between.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. For me, it was 4 a.m. in the morning, but I had work. I had to leave my house up for work at like 6 in the morning. So I didn't watch the race live. I like watched it on my lunch break.
You saved yourself, honestly, because it was so much. It was so much. And we are about to get into all of it in this episode. But before we do, we want to touch on some news we wanted to bring you guys from the F1 world because one thing we feel is really important that was like a big conversation topic removed from the race and the teams is obviously we all know there's a conflict going in the Middle East right now. And honestly, like if you live in any of those areas affected, our thoughts are with you so much. We hope you're safe and are staying safe. But because of those conflicts, we may not have 2 F1 races on the calendar this year that might be taken off. Obviously, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, both those countries have been affected by this conflict. And those races were supposed to happen in April. And what F1 is saying right now is basically if they cannot hold the races, they don't feel it's safe to hold the races at those 2 locations, those races will be canceled and they will not be replaced. That decision is supposed to be made by March 20th, or on March 20th, we'll have an official statement and decision from Formula One and the FIA. But pretty crazy, Yasmin, to think that we could have 2 races completely wiped off the calendar at this point.
It's really scary, not just because of the situation that's going on in the Middle East, of course, but like I was there in Bahrain for preseason testing.
Yeah.
3 years ago. And, now Bahrain is in like this state and it's jarring. It doesn't feel like it was the same place that I went to.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the FIA, like it shouldn't be we'll have a meeting and then we'll think about cancelling. It should just be cancelled. It shouldn't be maybe we should. No, it should just be cancelled, guys.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think this whole conflict is going to work itself out in time for April, but also a reason that they're not replacing them. That was my next thought was like, well, we had COVID, like we dealt with when races needed to be replaced, that we did that. And their reason saying that they can't replace these races because it's too short of a period of time to possibly try to reconfigure everything, get a track ready, tickets sold. It's just not enough time, which totally makes sense to me now when I think about it. Like the Bahrain race is supposed to be weekend of April 10th, and then Saudi Arabia is supposed to be the weekend of April 17th. So yeah, you've got 2 pretty much back-to-back races there, and that's a lot to try and reschedule and also get a whole nother track prepared and ready for it. So if you're going to one of those races, I'm sorry, I'm sure you're probably very disappointed, but also, we need to be safe and respectful.
Yeah, bigger things are happening in the world than F1, unfortunately.
I know, yeah. So again, if you're in any of those affected areas, we hope you're safe. I personally have friends actually in those affected areas, and I've been making sure they've been safe as well. So our thoughts are with you. And we hope that this podcast brings you some little light in your day or comfort, hopefully. And then last but not least, let's end on a good note for this news segment. Diego Patrick is gone. Woo! Ding dong, the witch is dead. The witch is dead. The witch is dead. No, she's not a witch. Sorry. That was just the first song that popped into my mind. But yeah, I think we're all pretty happy about this. Would you agree, Yasmin? Are you happy about this?
I think out of everyone, Jensen Button's very happy about this. So yeah.
He definitely treated himself to a nice dinner or a bottle of wine that night. But yeah, she's no longer, she didn't get fired technically. Sky Sports just didn't re-sign her contract. It was a mutual parting. She even posted like a whole like, oh, you know, had so much fun kind of post. So yeah, you don't need to worry about Danica Patrick. But the one thing I will miss about her is the memes that were created, mostly of Jensen Button's reaction face to her
So
talking.
true. So true.
Yeah, that's the only thing I'm going to miss about her being on the Sky Sports broadcast. So yeah, ending that news segment on a good note. Because this week was so intense and so crazy and so many things going on, not just about the race, but about the teams in general, we wanted to start this episode off with a little pre-race talk to kind of organize ourselves, because it's just literally, I could have filled this entire Ferrari notebook with notes on this week. So we want to start with little pre-race talk. First topic, we want to talk about Aston Martin. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh my God. Where do we
Yeah.
start with this one, Danielle?
I feel
Not Danielle,
like...
Brianna.
Oh yeah, also if I didn't mention, Danielle's not here. She's having fun going through amazing W Series clips right now for work, so she couldn't be here. But yeah, I think that what you just said, Yasmin, summed it up. Like, oh no. And I think that's how Adrian Newey feels. Listen, there were a lot of topics around Aston Martin this week. Obviously, everyone knew it was not going to be good, just off of everything going on in testing and what we saw from testing and what the team was saying from testing. So they're in big trouble, basically. If you've lived on another planet and haven't heard about this, they're in some trouble. The first bit of trouble, and probably their biggest issue right now that's affecting everything else, is their car is experiencing extreme vibration issues in the chassis. It is causing things on the car just to break. Like, they're just breaking because of how powerful the vibration is. Mirrors are falling off the car because it's shaking so badly. It is literally killing their battery. The vibration is so strong, it's damaging the battery beyond use. Which, just think about that. Think about how sturdy that battery already has to be to withstand the G-forces and also just like all the bumps and craziness that F1 car experiences. And this vibration is too much for it. So that's problems. And then not only is it causing problems to the car and all of its parts, it's also causing problems to the drivers. Fernando said he could complete about 25 consecutive laps, and Lance said 15 consecutive laps before they would experience permanent nerve damage. Like, what is happening? What is going on? Also, it sounds like they're on like a space shuttle, just constantly taking off. Like, sounds how extreme. Yasmin, I mean, what do you think could be causing this? I know it's a big question, and we are not Formula One engineers or physics people, but how could this go so wrong?
I'm actually at a loss, a complete loss, because of course, new regulations, not every team is going to get it right. Not every car is going to be up to scratch. But this is like give a 5-year-old like the tools to make an F1 car and things are going wrong. This is not a diss at Adrian Newey, of course. I have no knowledge of how to make a car, but it's like comical how bad it is. Maybe that's the curse of this podcast, of us talking so highly of Adrian Newey, going, oh my God, Aston Martin, they're going to be the ones to watch next year. And look at us now. Look at us now.
Yeah, we are not remaining optimistic.
The optimism out in the toilet,
It's gone.
flushed away.
We're not even thinking about it. That's how bad it is for Aston Martin. And I think, if anything, this goes to show, Yasmin, that just because you get some superstars in your team and have a big bag of cash doesn't make a good F1 car, is what we're seeing here. It's like they thought if they just had Adrian Newey and money, everything would magically work out. Like, do you feel the same way?
Well, to be fair, I was the same. I was like, oh, they've got the facilities, they've got Adrian Newey. It's over. It's over for the grid. Like they're coming back, Aston Martin. And I regret saying that now. So I don't blame Lawrence Stroll. I don't blame Aston Martin at all for thinking that because I was with them. I'm in the same boat.
Listen, I think we all thought that, but I think it's all proving us wrong right now. Adrian Newey was in a press conference this week, and he said, and I quote, "It makes me feel powerless." The great Adrian Newey is literally saying this situation makes him feel powerless, aka hopeless, is how I translated that personally. And for somebody like Newey to say something like that, you know it's bad. Because he's usually very much a solution-oriented guy. He's like, okay, there's a problem, we're going to fix it. Now, he did say, listen, we know basically this car is a heap of trash at the moment, but he does say he believes it still has a lot of potential. It's just working out these monsters or gremlins that they have going on right now. And once they can work those things out, then they can really try to concentrate and extract the potential out of that car. I don't disagree with him. Like, he designed the thing, so he knows what the potential it has and what it doesn't. And him being him, I have full confidence in the fact that he could extract some kind of performance out of that car that at least gets them a little further. But listening to him talk was terrifying. And then he decided to inform everybody that in Australia, they came to Australia with 4 Honda batteries, 2 of which actually were already broken or just weren't working. So for the whole weekend, they only had 2 batteries to rely on for both cars. And they also had to worry about the extreme vibration breaking them because it's been doing that. How terrified would you be, Yasmin, if you were Fernando Alonso or Lance Stroll?
I think I would just be like, why would we just not race today?
I mean, honestly, that's like what they were saying. They were literally like, yeah, I think we'll just like do a couple of laps and then we'll see how it goes.
Literally, because what are you supposed to do? Like, if you can't even stay in the car for like 25 laps because you're just like literally like bouncing off the tiny chassis, like I would just be like, you know what? We'll go round, do we? Hi everyone, you got what you paid for. Like, look at us on track, and then just retire.
Yeah,
retire the car.
Yeah, exactly. And do you know, I heard this. I believe it was on TikTok. Forgive me, I forget. It's a reliable source, but apparently during testing, the vibration in the car was so bad that Fernando and Lance were chewing multiple pieces of gum while driving the car around track to act as a mouth guard to protect their teeth. Like, first of all, I'm like, guys, Amazon Prime exists. Like, you could have just Amazon Primed yourself some mouth guards for like $5. But get your boys at least some mouth guards instead of be like, here's a pack of juicy fruit. Go at it. Like, but that's how bad it was.
So bad. And what kind of like goes through my head, if it's getting that bad that you have to have like a mouth guard in, I'm surprised the FIA aren't like, this is dangerous. Like, you shouldn't not, this car is not legal for the road, basically. So that's a bit concerning as well.
Yeah. And honestly, there were questions this weekend being thrown around as to like, is this even safe? Especially when the whole, hey, my hands are going to be permanently nerve damaged. Like, there were questions around, do they even need to go out there? Because is this even safe for the drivers? And I think that's a question that definitely needed to be asked. If you didn't think it could get any worse for Aston Martin, it did. It got worse. Because also we found out this week that Aston Martin discovered that their partner, their powertrain engine battery provider, Honda, which if you remember, was partnered with Red Bull for a very long time. They basically birthed the championship-winning car that Max Verstappen was able to go out there with. So this year, Aston Martin's partnership with Honda took effect. Even though they signed that deal in 2023, that they were going to be working together for the 2026 season, okay? I just want to... This all makes sense in a moment. So Aston Martin signed this deal with Honda in 2023 to start working together in 2026. In November of 2025, so just a few months back from this very day, Aston Martin took their first trip to Honda's facility where all of their lovely parts and batteries were going to be made for their brand new Adrian Newey powered car. And they discovered that the Honda team was actually in shambles. And what I mean by that is only 30% of the team that worked on that amazing Red Bull car was actually still with the Honda F1 team working on their car. And in fact, the team was much smaller than it was when that team worked with Red Bull. Basically, Aston Martin showed up and was like, excuse me? Like, they were like, here's our facility. And there were like 2 whole people in there and like 1 battery half made. And they were like, where's everyone? And they were like, what do you mean? This is the team. How do you think that went down? Because we know who Lawrence Stroll is and how he is. And how do you think that whole situation went down when they discovered, in fact, their Honda team that they signed a deal with was basically a half-assed team?
Say that some strong words may have been used when they go over there and they see just kind of the state that Honda is in. But also, you have to kind of like think like Lawrence Stroll should have, I don't know, investigated a bit more before just signing on the dotted line and being like, oh, Adrian Newey and Honda, it's a match made in heaven. I feel like you gotta do your research a bit more before you just like dive in and sign the dotted line. And maybe there was, we don't know. This isn't public knowledge. We just know that they basically went and like nobody was there at Honda. Yeah, it's a bit of an open-ended question, to be honest. Brianna, are you kind of on board with me on this one?
I'm 100% on board with you. But also it shocked me because, I mean, it is being reported that this was the first time Aston Martin ever went to the facility. And if that is true, that surprises me so much because, yeah, like you mentioned, doing a big deal with a company, this isn't just a sponsor, this is someone who's going to be making a very crucial part of your car, especially in the 2026 era when the battery is just as important as the engine component at this point, because of how much battery power is being used in this 2026 car. And the fact that you signed that deal and didn't do your proper investigation kind of it's a big question mark in my head because Lawrence Stroll is a businessman. This isn't a new game for him. He's been a successful businessman pretty much his entire adult life. So that's like step number 1, checkbox number 1 on the to-do list is make sure what you're buying is actually there. And it wasn't. And to me, that's just poor business dealings. And like you said, Yasmin, I think like they were just like, oh, cool, we get a good partner. We know they produce that Red Bull car, so they're definitely good to go. And then we're going to get Adrian Newey, and he's good to go too. And then we're going to build this wind tunnel and put all this money into this factory, and that's going to make us great too. And none of those things seem to help them at all. And then on top of that Honda thing, the question about those batteries that they showed up to Australia with, they were like, oh, can you have new batteries shipped out? And they were like, actually, no, because Honda doesn't have any. I mean,
are we in a sitcom? Are we in like
yeah.
an F1's themed sitcom? Like this is crazy.
It's literally The Office times F1. No, sorry, The Office times Aston Martin. The amount of things that have gone wrong for Aston Martin for the beginning of this 2026 season is just insane to me. And it also screams to me with the whole like Honda and Aston Martin partnership. It kind of really, really shows how their communication has completely broken down. Especially as well, too, with like there were talks about the car chassis had to be adjusted to fit in like the components from Honda. Like it's very clear that Honda and Aston Martin were working completely separately up until the moment where they had to come together and put that stuff in the car. And that is so, so clear. And again, baffles me because Lawrence Stroll is literally a businessman. He understands like how the logistics of how these things should work and move. And whoever was in charge of the communication between Honda and Aston Martin, I hope they've been fired. Because honestly, there's no excuse for it, really.
Yeah, you need to go. You need to go. Maybe Lawrence Stroll just had in his mind that, money can fix anything and that, Adrian Newey can fix anything, can do anything with any type of equipment, but he's not a miracle worker. Like there's only so much that one person can do. So let's just say that lesson's been learned.
We hope so. Oh my God, if it hasn't been learned by now, I'm very terrified for them. I guess my final question for you on this whole Aston Martin falling apart at the seams is, do you think Adrian Newey regrets going to Aston Martin at this point?
I probably think right now Adrian Newey does regret going to Aston Martin, but it's very early days. Like, again, this is the first race of the season. You know, Williams isn't doing too well either with the regulation changes, but probably right now he's like, where can I get out of here? But I feel like this year is going to be just kind of like a balancing act with all the teams. Upgrades are going to come, teams are going to go back to the bottom, teams are going to go to the top. Maybe I'm being optimistic, a bit too optimistic, but we shall see. We shall see.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I am sure it's gone through Adrian Newey's head more than once. I'm 67. Why don't I just retire? Like, why did I do this to myself? Like, why didn't I just leave on a high from Red Bull and like retire and get my beautiful home in the Italian Alps and just call it a day? I'm sure he's probably thought that many a times. But if there's anything we know about Adrian Newey, like you said, he will persevere. He will find ways to extract some potential and pace out of this car. It might not be this season. It might be the end of the 2026 regulations by the time that they get there. But I hope for their sake that they're able to figure this relationship with Honda out, this extreme vibration that they're having for the sake of the drivers, because honestly, they can't drive that car, and for the sake of the national treasure that is Adrian Newey, because we must protect him at all costs. And at this point, Lawrence Stroll is destroying him, all of his hopes and dreams. So we wish you well, kind of, Aston Martin.
Prayer for you.
Yeah, a little prayer. And just FYI, right before we dive in to our race recap here, we're not going to mention Aston Martin in this race recap because honestly, they were nowhere. They were there, then they weren't, then they were back, and then they weren't again. So they basically did some laps, took a hot second for an espresso break, and then decided to come back on track for a couple more laps. They were just using this race, as a data collecting session. So yeah, real interesting.
As soon as you were talking about their race, my microphone just fell over there. I think my mic is even like, you're not talking about this. You're not doing this. No. Next topic.
Your mic is like, this is too horrible. It's been too much. We're done.
It's like, no. We're not doing this. You've already talked enough about them now.
Exactly. Really quick before we get into our race recap, guys, I want to talk about our sponsor, which I'm so proud to be the owner of, which is Grand Prix Girl. If you didn't know, Grand Prix Girl really started with a simple frustration. It's me and my mom. We've loved F1 for so long, but we couldn't find merchandise made for women, which kind of blew our minds, seeing that women make up now over 43% of the F1 fan base. So we decided to make our own. Yes, that's right. We went into business together and we started making our own F1 merch. The brand is called Grand Prix Girl. Grand Prix Girl offers jewelry in race day style designs exclusively for female F1 fans. We keep you guys top of mind every time we are designing something, and our brand is truly all around female Formula One and motorsports fans. You can shop our best-selling products like our paddock pendant and even our new double stack bracelets that just came out at grandprixgirl.com. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok as well at Grand Prix Girl, and we hope you come join us over in our community. We are really proud to sponsor this podcast, and we are so proud and honored to bring you merch made for female fans. So again, go check us out at grandprixgirl.com, and back to the podcast. Now it's time for what you've all been waiting for, which is our race recap, because holy moly, we have so much to talk about actually even before the race started. Really quick, qualifying highlights. Max and Kimi, they crashed. Big shocker, I think, was Max crashing. Honestly, my mouth was agape when I saw it cut to Max crashing. Were you also same way? You were like, wait, what? No, that can't be Max Verstappen.
I was like, oh, is this Isaac? Because I just kind of assumed that like second seat driver, this is it, your career's done. But it was Max. I was like, oh.
Yeah. Okay. Bizarre. But obviously he crashed due to a software issue that literally made his entire rear axle lock up, which is scary, and we'll come on to that topic a little bit later. And then Kimi absolutely crunched his little Mercedes into a big old shattered blob of carbon fiber. And he was out. Kimi didn't crash out in qualifying. He crashed out in practice. P3. And it was a big crash, and I thought to myself, there's no way he's making it to quali. Yasmin, how much of a miracle is it that Mercedes were able to take that mangled car and get it on track for qualifying?
I'm pretty sure Mercedes were even saying, well, Toto Wolff was saying, I was reading in just some of the news that was coming out, that even he was surprised that it was like out on time, because it was such a huge shunt. It like you were saying, like literally just a load of carbon fiber everywhere.
Massive.
Listen, I've got to give it to Mercedes and their engineers and their mechanics, because impressive. Like, I don't even know, where do you start? Where do you start to rebuild a car after that?
I have no idea. And honestly, it is a straight up miracle they did it. So clapping right now, snapping for the Mercedes team. You boys are literally legends. And ladies are literally legends. So Max crashed qualifying. Kimi crashed in P3, made it into qualifying. This is the first time we've seen these cars, this new regulation, and how this is going to work. Yasmin, what were your thoughts kind of on how it was working?
Yeah, the regulations, let's just say, coming in to this season were making me a bit nervous, just because it is so different. They are so different. So my biggest concern was kind of how much the new energy systems would influence the racing, which is pretty much, I think everyone kind of had that same, oh my God,
Yeah.
what is active boost mode? What is that? But of the 2026 rules shifting so heavily with that like kind of 50-50 split on the electrical power and the battery management, that I think the fear that the drivers have at the minute is that they would be spending more time managing those systems than actually driving, which we've heard like a lot of mixed complaints about this, especially over the weekend, because it did show up in Melbourne, mainly because the drivers were having to lift and harvest energy and manage that deployment constantly.
Yeah.
So it created those big speed differences on straights, like some strange overtakes. George Russell and Charles Leclerc swapped the lead multiple times in a few laps, largely due to the different energy deployment phases rather than their pure pace. So it was very exciting, but the energy strategy is going to be a massive, massive factor in this era. Massive.
Yeah, it's massive. And we saw that play out in the race. For qualifying, I think what was so interesting about qualifying and the race, and also watching for the drivers and for fans, is everyone was trying to figure it out. And I think in qualifying, it was their first kind of like toes in the water of like, okay, if I have an ideal lap, how am I going to deal with this? Like, where am I going to harvest the energy? If my battery's topped off, like, how am I going to deploy that energy throughout this lap? If my battery isn't topped off, where does it make the most sense around this track to harvest energy? And where am I getting the most harvesting versus places where I'm only getting a little? Like, it was truly, honestly, like a big old question mark for everybody. And I think that made it exciting, but also on the driver's side, like you said, there's some nerves around, am I driving or am I like harvesting? Am I practicing about like harvesting energy in this battery this whole time? But yeah, just incredibly interesting to see how the drivers and were approaching qualifying as well differently. Because, for example, with the old red car, you could go ahead and do a lap, like a fast hot lap, and then if you needed to go again, you could possibly go immediately after that lap. It's not ideal, obviously, because battery still played a part in that, but with this car, you can. If you've done a hot lap, your battery is gone by the time you're done. So you got to go around again, do max harvesting, make sure your battery's topped off, so then when you go for another hot lap. So I think it affected qualifying in that way, but didn't really affect qualifying differently. But to your point, in the race, it really just switched everything up into pure chaos for all the points that you mentioned. Now, I guess my question for you mentioned that, you were a little nervous. And honestly, we all were. We were all a little nervous as to how these new regulations were going to produce the racing they've been telling us it's going to produce. What was your biggest fear, and did it come true?
It's kind of like a fear and not a fear.
Mm-hmm.
It's the unpredictability of these cars. I love having a race that is unpredictable. I love how we can go to China next weekend and the team, we could have completely different results.
Mm-hmm.
But what's concerning me a bit more is that unpredictability is kind of confusing some of the drivers, and like, I don't really understand how these cars work. And I drive this way and then the car behaves this way, but then I'll drive this way and it won't do this, won't do that. So there's just kind of that, like, drivers basically learning how to drive again. And
Yeah.
maybe that's a bit of an extreme kind of like way to put it. But I'm just thinking mainly about Ollie Behrman, his interviews over the weekend. He even said, I don't get this car. I don't understand this like energy harvesting. And yeah, I think this is going to be like a big issue that we're going to have. And maybe drivers might just like by the halfway mark of this season, they get it and they're like, you know what, I understand it now, and they can play around with it a bit more. But I think at least this season, we're going to have a lot of drivers be like, I don't get this car. And
Yeah.
that's not good for the sport.
Yeah, honestly, that was one of my questions to ask you, and one of my notes is a lot of drivers were using words like this driving feels artificial or straight up chaotic. We saw a lot of drivers saying those exact same words to describe their experience. But then after racing, I also heard drivers like Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc and George say they had fun. It has been a long time since I heard a driver like genuinely say, and you can tell they were like, oh, that was fun. Lewis actually said, I didn't want the race to stop. Like, that is a direct quote from Grumpy Grandpa Lewis Hamilton, who all last year was just, like, constantly complaining about his life as a Formula One driver. And he literally said, like, that was so much fun, I didn't want the race to stop. So I guess to your point, and my question to you, Yasmin, is do you think that this new era is just going to have its teething period with drivers? Because it is completely brand new. And like you mentioned, drivers are literally having to learn a new way to drive again. No one has driven this F1 car or a car like this in Formula One currently. So do you think this is just kind of a teething pains, and once drivers get a hold of it, we'll hear less of this artificial, chaotic comments about the type of racing they're experiencing?
I 100% hope, at least, that this is just, like, I just hope that it is teething issues. Again, I don't think we've had such a big regulation change for like a decade. So it really is going to take a lot of new learning from all the drivers, especially when we're moving towards a period where it is 50-50 and we're relying so much on the battery now. We've never had to, in the sport. So I think like drivers just are going to have, that sounds so mean, are just going to have to learn and like put up with it. I know the FIA are kind of looking into some things and they're going to be changing things. I think they're going to be looking into that after China, so after this weekend, and see what they can do to change some things around. But yeah, like you said, Lewis Hamilton saying something positive about a race weekend. Excuse me, did I hear that right? What?
Are we in the, excuse me, let me just clean out my ear. Yeah, it was, I heard Charles Leclerc saying like, wow, that was fun. George as well was like, that was a great race. I very much enjoyed that. And I think what we're going to see, and what at least we're seeing from this very first race and this first kind of iteration of the regs, like you mentioned, the FIA are still looking at like changing some things, tweaking some things to make it better for the drivers and possibly us as well, to understand these new rules. But we might see like, man, I really don't like the way I'm having to think about 400 things while I'm driving. I can't just get in the car and, just go. I have to think about our energy harvesting and whatnot. But I really liked the racing it's producing. Like, I got to fight multiple times during this race, and it was fun for me as a driver. So I think we're going to see, the more as the season goes on, drivers like torn in this way of like, I'm not really... Sorry, guys. If you are not watching the video version of this podcast, I literally made like a torn motion with my hands, and then fireworks animations just started going off behind my head. So yeah, what an illustration that was. Anyways, back to that. I think we're gonna see that they're enjoying the racing that's being produced on track, but they're not enjoying how it's being produced. is basically what I'm saying. All right, guys, this episode's going to go long. So this is part 1 of the episode. Make sure to comment, like, and follow to listen to part 2. Part 2 will be coming out on Wednesday. So no worries. You don't have to wait too long. But make sure to follow, subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And part 2 will be out tomorrow. Thanks.
Hello, fly chick coming through. Nice to meet you. Glad you came too. Like your style when you know you